All right, so you're here with us today because, just like us, you're fascinated by Elvis, right? And I think today we're going to dive into something really interesting. That a lot of Elvis fans may not even know that much about.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and everyone knows about Elvis and Priscilla, but before Priscilla, there was June.
Exactly, June Wanako.
Yeah.
And she's often considered like his first, like, real love,
Yeah.
like before all the craziness happened.
Yeah, before he was LVS, right? This is like back in 55, 56, so like right when his career is just taking off.
It's kind of like the calm before the storm,
Yeah, exactly.
before everything changed. So, we do a lot of research for these deep dives, and for this one, we've got some pretty cool stuff. We've got some news articles like from over the years talking about Elvis and June.
Mm.
We've got excerpts from June's book, Elvis, in the Twilight of Memory. We've got like some fan reactions that we pulled from like Reddit, which is always interesting.
Yeah.
We listened to a podcast interview with June herself, and we've got a YouTube video transcript where someone's kind of doing their own little dive into Elvis and June.
Yeah, that's great. It's good to get like a wide range of sources. Right?
Exactly. So you're not just getting one perspective. You're getting like, we're getting June's perspective. We're getting other people's perspectives on June. And I think it paints a really interesting picture. So kind of our mission for today is to understand, like, really, what was that connection?
Yeah.
What sparked between them? What was their relationship about? And also, like, what ultimately pulled them apart?
Yes.
And what lasting impact did June have on Elvis? So I guess let's just jump right in. Let's go all the way back to the summer of 1955. And this is where we first kind of, hear about Elvis and June meeting.
Okay.
So the setting is an airman's club, like at Keesler Air Force Base
Mm-hmm.
in Biloxi, Mississippi. June was just 17 at the time, and she was there with some of her girlfriends, to see Elvis perform. He was like performing there. And what's interesting is that, June, in some of her accounts, she didn't describe herself as like a crazy Elvis fan. She wasn't screaming and fainting. She was kind of just, there to see him.
Right.
But, in her own words, she described him as like the most gorgeous thing,
Yeah.
big dreamy eyes. And I guess she was pretty much smitten right away.
Yeah. I mean, how could you not be?
Exactly. It's Elvis.
Yeah.
But it's their like first interaction that's really interesting. So, Elvis was up on stage and he even like reached down through the crowd, asked June, "Where are you going?"
Talk about an icebreaker, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty bold. I like it.
Smooth.
Yeah. I got to try that one.
Yeah, take some notes.
Well, you know how it works.
So what happened next? Did they go on a date after the show? They did. They went on a date, and they went for a drive. And it sounds like, from all the accounts, like it was really like just fun and playful. Like June recounts, like asking Elvis,
Oh,
like, "Well, what are you in the mood for?" And Elvis, like, jokingly said, "Oh, I can't tell you that, or you might slap me." So, right off the bat, like kind of flirty and funny.
yeah, definitely. And they were both laughing about it. It wasn't, creepy. It was just like playful.
Exactly. And, it sounds like they had this like, fun banter going back and forth. Like June at one point was showing Elvis where people, would fish, for flounder in the area.
Yeah.
And Elvis was like innocently like, "Oh, so you can catch crabs there too." And then he like immediately like realized what he said, and like, they both started laughing.
He was a little bit innocent,
Yeah, exactly. Like he didn't,
like a little naive in some ways.
Yeah.
At least that's how he was coming across to June.
Totally. Totally.
So what else happened on this date?
Well, you can't talk about this date without talking about the famous toilet seat joke, right? So basically, Elvis was like, following up on that whole, like, you can catch crabs there too thing. And he said to June, in other words, "June, you're telling me you can't catch them from a toilet seat, right?" So, like, again, that humor,
I love it. It's so cheesy, but it's cute.
yeah, I feel like, you kind of had to be there.
Right. It's a different time.
Yeah, but they were vibing for sure.
Mm.
But it wasn't all just, jokes and that kind of stuff. It sounds like their date got really, really romantic as the night went on.
Oh, okay. So tell me more about that.
So they spent hours, like literally hours, on a pier together. And then, even after that, they were just sitting in his car outside of June's house, just talking until the sun came up. And June describes this really like tender moment where like he was kissing her neck, over and over again. And then he took her face in his hands and kissed her on her forehead, her eyes, her nose, and then finally her mouth. And she says it was the most tender kiss she had ever had.
Oh, that's really sweet. It sounds like a scene straight out of a movie.
Totally. And they spent like hours just talking and kissing under the moonlight. So yeah, I mean, after a night like that, it's easy to see how she said that, she really felt like it was the real thing.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it sounds like they really connected. So what happened after this amazing date?
Well, that's where things get a little interesting, right? Because after that, like incredible first date, there was radio silence for 8 months. No contact.
Whoa, 8 months. That's a long time.
I know. It's a really long time, especially after such an intense, connection. So it really makes you wonder, like, what happened, right?
Well,
Was Elvis just busy with, his career starting to take off? Was he hesitant to commit? Or was it just, the reality of those days? Like, long distance was really hard back then.
yeah, it's not like they could just text each other or hop on a video call.
Exactly. It was a different world.
Right. So did they ever reconnect after those 8 months?
They did. In the summer of '56, June actually decided to take a trip to Memphis with some of her girlfriends. And, they decided to go see Elvis's new house on Audubon Drive. And they didn't even know if he was going to be there, but talk about fate. Right as they were, kind of looking around the property, this pink Cadillac pulls up
Oh, wow.
with Elvis and his parents inside. And guess who just happened to be, like, caught on the fence?
Oh, no. June.
June, out of all of them, right?
So awkward.
Yeah, she felt so awkward. But, Elvis, being Elvis, he just, like, walked right over to her, held her down for the fence, and asked her what she was doing there. And they chatted for, like, 15 minutes, and she mentioned that she and her friends were going to go see a movie that night.
Ah. Did Elvis just leave it at that?
Oh, no, he didn't. He actually drove around until he found her friend the car, which was pretty easy to spot because it was, in June's words, hot pink.
Oh, my gosh.
And then he just opened the car door and sat right down next to June and held her hand during the entire movie.
Wow. That's bold. I mean, I guess when you're Elvis, you can kind of do that.
Exactly. And then the next morning, he even took her for a ride on his motorcycle. Before she left to go back to Biloxi, after spending like 7 days in Memphis, he promised her that he'd visit her during his upcoming vacation.
It sounds like things were heating up again. So he actually did visit her in Biloxi.
He did. That summer of '56 in Biloxi, that's like a really, really important time in their relationship. Like, Elvis was getting so famous. It was probably one of the last times he could really just, like, be himself.
Yeah, before Beatlemania hit, right? I mean, Elvis was the biggest star in the world at that point.
Exactly. So he rented a house by the water, and they basically spent every single day together. And there's actually, like, this amazing home movie footage that was filmed by this local boatman, Eddie Bellman, showing Elvis, June, and his parents just hanging out, water skiing, skeet shoot, just like, super casual.
Wow, that's amazing. Like a real glimpse into their private life.
Exactly. And, it was during this time that their conversations got more serious, like they even started talking about marriage. And it's interesting because it wasn't just Elvis who was smitten. His mom, Gladys,
Yeah.
she really liked June a lot. She saw her as, like, mature for her age, someone who could take care of Elvis and provide, like, stability, which he desperately needed with his lifestyle.
That's really sweet. It's like mom's approval.
Yeah, exactly. Gladys even told June that she felt like Elvis needed someone to look after him, and she really saw June as a potential daughter-in-law. And June, I mean, you can tell she was really touched by Gladys's kind of acceptance.
Absolutely. So it seemed like everything was pointing towards a future together. They were talking about marriage. Elvis's mom loved her. It was like a fairy tale.
It really does sound like it. And there's this one, like, super sweet, but also kind of heartbreaking moment that June describes in her book. They were under the stars, it was nighttime, and they had been kissing. And Elvis kind of confessed to her that he had made a promise to Colonel Parker to wait at least 3 years before getting married.
Oh, wow. The Colonel.
Yeah, and, he said he needed to let his career, like, really take off first.
Yeah.
And then he asked June, like, straight up, will you wait for me?
What did June say?
She said yes. She
Yeah.
agreed to wait for him.
Wow. So you have this deep connection, talks of marriage, his mom's blessing. It all sounds so perfect, but we know it didn't last, right?
No, it didn't. And, it's not hard to see why. I mean, Elvis's fame just exploded.
Yeah, it was like nothing anyone had ever seen before.
Exactly. And that kind of fame comes with, like, zero privacy.
Right. And then there's Colonel Parker?
Yeah, Colonel Tom Parker, he, like, looms large over all of this.
Yeah.
He was Elvis's manager, and he was, brilliant in terms of building Elvis's career. But he also had a very specific vision for Elvis's image. And that vision didn't really include a serious girlfriend.
Right. I mean, he was probably worried about alienating Elvis's female fans.
Totally. And he also, like, it seems like he really viewed Elvis as, like, a product,
Yeah.
and any kind of serious relationship might, like, tarnish that image.
It's kind of sad when you think about it.
It really is. And, June later on said that she really felt like Parker had a lot of control over Elvis's personal life, too, like who he could see, when he could see them, even, like, if mad, when he could get married. And she really felt like he was the one who pressured Elvis to end things with her.
That's heavy. So was there a specific event that kind of made things fall apart?
Well, there's this incident during Elvis's Florida tour that really kind of highlights the tension and also, like, Parker's influence. So June went to visit Elvis during his tour in Miami, and a reporter spotted her. And, June, she was, like, super naive about dealing with the press. So she just kind of innocently mentioned that, Elvis had another, quote, steady back in Memphis.
Oh, no. I bet the colonel was not happy about that.
Oh, he was furious. And he immediately orchestrated this public denial. Like, Elvis was quoted as saying, "I got about 25 girls I date regular. She's just one of the girls." Like, that was Elvis's quote.
Ouch. That's gotta hurt.
Yeah, like, imagine reading that in the newspaper.
Yeah.
But June's mom, she wasn't having it. When the local paper back in Biloxi reached out to her, she set the record straight. She was like, listen, when Elvis was here, he was only with June. She even confirmed that Elvis had asked June to wait 3 years to marry him. Like, she was backing up June's story.
Good for her. Standing up for her daughter. So all this drama, the pressure from Parker, the distance, it must have put a huge strain on their relationship.
Absolutely. And this is what leads us to the breaking point, really. Elvis sent June a telegram asking her to meet him during a train layover in New Orleans.
A telegram? That's serious.
Right. Like, he really wanted to see her, and he even told her he had a surprise for her.
Oh, wow. A surprise. What was the surprise?
We'll get to that. But here's the thing. By this point, June's life had changed, too. After Elvis went to Hollywood, they barely spoke. Like, 3 phone calls in 5 months, and she was seeing all these reports of him with other women.
So she'd moved on.
Yeah, in a way.
Yeah.
She had started dating this guy, Fabian Toronto, and they had gotten engaged.
Oh, wow. So this meeting in New Orleans, it was like a crossroads.
Exactly. So picture this. They meet on the train, and June tells Elvis that she's engaged.
I bet he was crushed.
He was devastated. He begged her to reconsider, to go back to Memphis with him, saying he had this, like, big surprise for her. But June, she was torn, She still loved Elvis, but she was also committed to Fabian.
Such a tough decision. What did she do?
She decided to stay with Fabian. She said later that she felt like Elvis had the whole world at his feet. He could have any girl he wanted. But Fabian, he needed her.
It makes sense. She followed her heart.
And to really solidify her decision, June married Fabian on June 1st, 1957. And they were together for 34 years.
Wow. So that was it? Elvis and June never saw each other again?
They did, actually, one more time.
Yeah.
A few years later, in the early 60s, they ran into each other at a movie theater. It was just a brief encounter, but they hugged. And June remembers that Elvis was with Priscilla at the time.
Oh, wow. Awkward.
Yeah, a little bit. June said Priscilla was polite, but kind of indifferent, like she didn't really care.
Right. I mean, it's a different time.
Yeah. But, even though June moved on and had her own family, Elvis's death in 1977 hit her really hard.
Yeah.
She said she was watching it on TV and she just collapsed. Fell to her knees, couldn't breathe.
Ooh.
She even thought that if her mom hadn't been there, she might have, really lost it.
That's so sad. It just shows how much he still meant to her.
Yeah. And it was clear that their relationship really stayed with her, because in 1997, she wrote this book, Elvis, in the Twilight of Memory. And it's not like some salacious tell-all. It's really her perspective on Elvis, the man, the Elvis she knew.
So it's like a more personal look at Elvis.
Exactly. And even Peter Goralnik, who's like a really well-respected Elvis biographer, he wrote the introduction to her book, and he praised her honesty and the fact that she wrote it herself. It wasn't ghostwritten or anything.
That's cool. So what do other Elvis fans think of the book?
Oh, they love it. Like, you go on Reddit and people are always talking about it. They say it's like really intimate and it transports you back to that time, the 50s, and there's this like real sense of melancholy, like lost love,
Makes sense. It's a love story that could have been.
Exactly. And June even talks about some of the songs that remind her of Elvis, like Is It So Strange, which he apparently sang to her, and Unchained Melody, which he played for her on the piano.
Oh, that's so romantic.
And also the song Are You Lonesome Tonight? which, takes on a whole new meaning when you think about their story.
Yeah, definitely. So, looking back, did June ever regret her decision? Like not getting off that train with Elvis?
Oh, yeah. She said that she always wondered what would have happened if she had stayed with him. Like, what if she had waited to see what his surprise was? Maybe things would have been different.
It's one of those big what ifs in history, you know?
Totally.
Hmm.
And, some people even speculate that maybe if Elvis had married June, things might have turned out differently for him. Like maybe he wouldn't have gone down some of the paths he did.
Maybe she could have been a good influence on him.
Yeah, maybe. It's impossible to know for sure. So as we kind of wrap this up, what do you think are some of the key takeaways from Elvis and June's story?
Well, first off, they had a real connection, like a genuine, deep connection right at the start of Elvis's career.
Yeah, it was real.
And we see how massive fame and the pressure from his manager, Colonel Parker, really shaped Elvis's life, even his personal life. And June, she had to make some really tough choices, weighing her love for Elvis against her own needs and what she wanted for her future.
And even though they didn't end up together, it's clear that June's love for Elvis never really faded. It's kind of bittersweet.
Yeah. It really is. And it makes you think, like, could Elvis's life have been different if he had been with June? It makes you realize that even these huge icons, they're human. They
Yeah.
have feelings, they make choices, they have regrets. And sometimes things just don't work out the way you planned.
Yeah, exactly. And their story also really makes you think about the influence of management and image and all of those external forces on the lives of people, especially people in the spotlight.
Absolutely. So for all of you listening, we leave you with this question. Could Elvis have had a different life with June? Think about it and maybe do some of your own digging into their story.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.